Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Zoom and Knit. Hello.
I always love the mad dash when
Yes.
you admit all and it's just whoosh, the room fills. Hello, hello.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to our Zoom and Knit. Good to see you.
The visuals pop on slowly but surely. Hello,
Yes,
hello.
welcome.
There
Oh,
we go. Seeing some familiar faces, some fun
hello.
ways. I'm
Welcome
going
to
to
our
open up my
Zoom and Knit.
chat so I can see anything going on over there.
Yeah, feel free to say hi in the chat. Get to know everybody. Say where you're coming in from or put a cute emoji in there. It's always good to say hi. We're going to give it a minute so that everyone can get in, get settled, get comfy.
There we go. We have someone starting that chat up. Just a
Hello,
hi,
hello.
everyone. Thank you, Linda. Hi to you too.
Yes. If you're just joining, welcome, hello, welcome to our Zoom and Knit. We're excited to see you. Hello, hello.
Hello for Orlando. Okay, we
Oh,
got
hello.
Orlando. Is it I guess Orlando's not. I know there's a snowstorm happening on the East Coast, but I imagine Florida doesn't really get
Yeah, probably not in Orlando.
the storm. Texas, South
Hello.
Carolina, nice. Los Angeles, nice.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. If you're just joining, welcome, welcome. Good to see you. We're going to get started in just a minute.
I see
Give it just
snowy
a second.
NYC.
Oh, yeah. Lots of
Is it 6
snow.
to 9 inches? I think I heard it's happening.
Awesome. Hello, hello. Give it just another minute. It's good to see everybody. If you're just joining, hello. We're happy you're here. Thanks for coming.
Knitting Columbus, Ohio. Yep. Feel free to knit along as we're
Yeah, knit
ready to
with us.
settle in.
We have a full agenda today, so lots of fun stuff to get to, but we'll settle in just a second. Give it a little bit more. Hello from Minnesota. Aw, Los Angeles. Awesome. All right. What do
Maybe
you
we can
think,
get it.
Jaja?
I think we can do it.
All right. Well, I'm sure people keep joining. That's great. We'll see them as they come in. I'm going to add a spotlight to Jaja and I here so you can see us. All righty. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to our Color Wash Blanket Zoom and Knit. I'm Margaret. I'm the social media and outreach coordinator at Purl Soho, and I'll be hosting this meeting today along with Jaja, my co-host. She's our customer service manager. And we have some moderators that'll be helping out in the chat. So if you have any questions throughout the Zoom and Knit, you're welcome to put them in the chat. We have Lily, Gabriella, and Kat from our customer service team. They'll be replying to your questions, and you'll know it's them because they have Purl Soho in their name.
Yeah, and we'll be collecting questions. There might be some easier ones that they can answer right away, but if there's any harder ones, they'll just collect that for a Q&A session at the end. So we'll keep an eye out for that. And I want to mention this sooner rather than later. If this is your first time, sometimes people like to send a message directly to either myself or Margaret. But if you do that, there's a high chance we won't be able to see it right away. So definitely direct it to everyone. I believe that's the default. Just the little, there's a window that says everyone instead of just to so-and-so. But yeah, so we're excited about this blanket. I don't know if you what's it, Margaret? Well, I know you've made some swatches.
Yes, I've had a lot of fun with our swatches.
This blanket's actually a redo from a pattern that first came out in 2019. I didn't realize it was even that recent. Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I know. They're all so cute. Here.
And we didn't have the swatches when it first came out. And this time we have even more colors of Linen Quill, which is definitely one of our most popular yarns. We'll get into that later. But really excited about all the iterations and just versions that you can come up with this time around. So really excited about that. This one's designed by one of our owners, Joelle Hubbardson, and she has designed pretty much all the really show-stopping Linen Quill blankets. The Nature's Palette blanket, one of my favorites, the Daybreak blanket. There's so many.
The
And I feel like
incredible blanket.
the incredible blanket was just that one really was the one that looks like crochet, but it's actually knit. It's just
Yeah.
amazing. So she just really has an eye for color, and what better way to play with color than some linen quill.
Yeah. I love this blanket because it looks like a picture frame. So you get to
Mm.
choose your view and knit whatever you want to look at. You know, what do you want to frame and look at? And it's cool because a lot of these bundles have gradients, but I think it would be equally fun to choose some cool stripes that you like and, you know, make it your own. There's really no way to go wrong here. It's choose your favorite colors and get knitting, you know.
Yeah, I think my favorites are the ones that kind of look like the California sunset.
Yeah,
So
they're
I
so
think just
gorgeous.
like a nice dark contrast on the outside is what I'm going to work on eventually.
Yeah. But anyway, for the Zoom in it today, we plan to cover absolutely everything you need to know to knit this blanket. So whether it's your first time knitting a blanket, or you just want to see how other people do it, we are here to run you through the whole program. So we have lots to get to. I think we've covered everything. Oh, we are recording this Zoom in it as well. We're going to put this on our YouTube channel after it's done being processed, and you can reference it there. We'll have timestamps in the description, everything you need so that you can go back and say, oh, how did we do that again? Okay, there we go, and we can rewatch it. So if you don't wish to be recorded, feel free to mute yourself and turn off your camera. We totally understand. But yeah, and then the only other thing before we get going is we're always available at customer service at purlsoho.com via email. If you have any questions, maybe you have a more in-depth question or you're just not sure, feel free to shoot us an email. We're happy to help. So yeah, but I think we're ready to get started. I'm gonna switch around these spotlights here, switch around my camera, and we can take a look at how this blanket comes together.
You're gonna start. Do you want me to unspotlight myself? Oh, you did
I
it for me.
gotcha.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Margaret.
You bet. I'm going to go over here to my document camera. There we go. Okay, yay! So we have all of these colorful swatches, and we're going to use these swatches today to resemble the blanket because the whole blanket wouldn't fit under this camera. And these swatches are a great proportional way to kind of work through how this comes together. So what we're going to do first is we're just going to take a look at how this blanket comes together so that you can feel like okay, I know what's going to happen. I know what's next. You know, it's really nice to know that as you're knitting. So I was like, let's just start there. Whenever I start a new project, it's helpful to see what you do first, middle, and last, you know? So this blanket, this is one of our swatches. This is the bronze patina colorway if you're looking at the color wash bundle. So this blanket, we start off right at the center panel. There's 3 components here. So there's the center panel, and then there's the left edge and the right edge. So, and these kind of come together to make the border or the frame. But what you do first is you cast on along this bottom edge, not all the way, just this center panel. And then you'll work back and forth in garter stitch, holding 2 strands of linen quill together for this bottom border. Then what you'll do is you'll switch and you'll start working on the color wash section. So you'll work with your yarns C through F, I think it is. Yeah, C through F. And you'll work in the 2-color garter stitch pattern to make a slow transition between each of the colors. Now, the 2-color garter stitch pattern is something I'll demonstrate later because that can be a little tricky, but it's really easy once you see it. You're like, oh my gosh, it's just like that. That's so simple. So I'll demonstrate that later, but that technique, the turn and slide technique, is used to slowly transition from one color to the next. So that's the color wash section. And then you join and you do the last little bit of the border right up at the top in garter stitch and bind off. Then what you do after that is you'll have the center column, you'll rotate your blanket or your swatch if you're knitting fun swatches, and then you'll pick up stitches all along the left selvage and then work back and forth in garter before binding off at the top here. Weave in that end or save it to the end, your choice, and then come around to the right side and you'll do the same thing. You'll pick up all of these stitches and work back and forth until it's time to bind off. And that's how you have the blanket. It's really nice. Everything looks, you know, pretty uniform and pretty once it's all done. So it's just a nice way to figure out, okay, here we go. We know how we're going to do it. So now let's do it.
One thing too, I think that was really interesting is that when you bind off, I think you leave the last stitch, right? When you
bind off, you leave the yarns attached
yeah.
on one side so that you can just go right into picking up and knitting stitches
There
from
we go.
there.
We'll
So
get some more in depth when that comes, but I just wanted to bring that up ahead of time just because I thought that was a nice
yeah,
time.
it's like a yarn saver, really. It's really
Mhm.
nice. You don't have to weave in 2 extra tails. So
Mhm.
yeah. So this we're gonna talk next about gauge, which gauge is an important part of any knitting project. Sometimes more than others. And
Yeah.
we always recommend knitting a gauge swatch, but we also understand that sometimes it's just too exciting and you just want to get to your project and just cast on. But what I'm going to recommend is, well, I definitely, on paper recommend a gauge swatch. You can always just cast on and measure from what you've knit.
Mhm.
So I'm going to show you real quick how to do that. This blanket is knit holding 2 strands of linen quill together. So if you do knit a gauge swatch, we recommend holding 2 strands together for that swatch as well, just to make sure everything's going to transfer over to your actual blanket. We do have a tutorial for how to measure gauge. Our moderators are going to put a link in the chat for that in case you need that to reference. It's really great. It tells you everything you need to know about gauge for all sorts of projects. And we also have a note in our pattern about which colors we recommend swatching with, because some colors are used more than others in the blanket. So the ones that are used less in the blanket are better to swatch with, so you still have yarn left over for the rest of the blanket. You can always reuse your gauge swatch yarns too, of course. So it is also one other thing I wanted to mention before I demonstrate here is that it's really common for your gauge to change over time, especially in a large project. When you start off, you're excited, you're knitting with one tension, then later, sitting in front of the TV, you're knitting a little bit differently, things might change a little. So it is good to measure your gauge as you go, just to make sure that, everything's on track, or if you need to make any adjustments. Especially with blankets. Blankets can really change over time, but um, blocking also is a secret weapon. Sometimes it's helpful to just hope for blocking to solve all of our problems. So you can always rely on that. But so I wanted to mention real quick how we're going to actually measure gauge here, because it does change a little with garter stitch. So I have the swatch in Compo, one of our other yarns. This is a really clear yarn. It's very easy to see, so that's why I'm measuring with this real quick. I'm also going to show you on one of the swatches of the blanket, because things always look different when you're in the project, so I want to have both demonstrated. But for measuring gauge, if I was to make this as an actual gauge swatch, I would have done maybe 5 inches by 5 inches, but this is just a tiny little guy here for what we're using. I have my brass needle gauge. There's a link in the chat for that. Thank you. In case you're interested in picking one of these up. They have a really convenient measuring tool on the edge, a ruler. So you can just put this flat on your knitting and measure, 4 inches. Okay, perfect. So we're going to use that. But when it comes time to count your rows in garter stitch, so in garter stitch, here, let me get oriented here. There we go. In garter stitch, there are garter ridges, and it looks a little different than the V's of stockinette stitch. So when it comes time to count rows, what I like to do is kind of bend these apart, kind of stretch them a little bit just to see. Let me focus here. And you can really see where each stitch is. We're going to talk about rows first. So we're going in this direction, up and down. So you can see here that this would be one stitch, and then there's another one that it goes into right down here. There's 2, and there's our V's that look similar to stockinette. So you can look at garter stitch as each ridge has 2 rows essentially. So you could count 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, or you could look between and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so on and so forth, 7, 8. I always think that these little garter ridges look like the side of a lasagna noodle or ravioli noodle. Like they're just so squiggly and fun. Sometimes you'll see gauge swatches in garter stitch call to count garter ridges instead of actual rows. So that would just be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This pattern does count actual rows though. So if you need to do that, you do 1, 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. Now, when you want to count stitches, we're going side to side here. This is fun because you just count the frowns. So there's smiles and frowns in garter stitch. It's a technical term. So what you're going to do is just count the frowns. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4. It'd be like 4 stitches to the inch, 4.5. 5, 6, 7, 8. And I would measure over 4 inches and have some extra swatch on either side so that I could really get a feel for how it goes, because your tension can change so much in such a short space. So it's nice to get a full sample size there. But yeah, gauge is really not too scary. It's just some counting, just to make sure everything's on track. But I do think with this blanket, you're definitely safe to just cast on and hit the ground running, go for it, and measure once you've knit a little bit just to make sure that everything's going as you planned. But yeah, that's gauge. It's pretty doable. I'm going to switch back to my camera here and pull Jaja back up on screen, because this blanket is knit with 2 strands of yarn held together, 2 strands of linen quill. So we wanted to take a minute to talk about linen quill. This yarn is actually on sale today. So if you see me using it throughout the Zoom and Knit and you're like, oh, I really want to try it, it is on sale through Wednesday for 20% off. And there's a link in the chat for that if you want to go directly to Linen Quill's page. But this yarn is so special. I really love it. It's really great for a blanket, for a sweater, for a hat. It's great for anything. It's a mix of Highland wool, linen, and alpaca, and each of those fibers take dye differently and just have their own properties. So you can kind of see this is crocus bud. Yep. You can kind of see how varied the colors are here and how like heathered, just so gently, so beautiful. So yeah, I just love linen quill.
My favorite thing about linen quill is just the drape, just because all 3 of those well, 2 of those. I feel like the wool is what gives it the body, but the linen and the alpaca are both pretty inelastic fibers. And traditionally those tend to drape really well, especially once they're blocked. And when you hold 2 together, then you get something close to a worsted weight, which is preferred to me, because as much as I love a fingering, it can be a little hard to work with, especially for a blanket that long. But when you're holding 2 at a time, that's really, I feel like, makes it sing. And it just gets extra drapery and body to it that I just feel like is extra comfy when you're just on your couch and you just want your throw on.
It's really nice. The wool adds like some bounce to it, some spring, and then the alpaca's softness, and linen is just the uniqueness. Like it's just so beautiful. So we have tons of bundles, tons of colors, like so many colors of linen quill. So if it catches your eye throughout the Zoom and Knit, feel free to go browse. We also have a bunch of projects in this yarn. Jaja mentioned a few earlier, but there's so many beautiful things you can make with it. So if it catches your eye, we wanted to point that out.
And I feel like most of the blankets actually hold it double, so
yes, right, exactly.
The thicker
it's
weight
so nice just to, okay, I'm gonna knit a blanket. Okay, 2 strands of yarn. Okay, we're good.
It's on US 7 needles, and I'm about to show you what it looks like when you do double yarn, because you may not have doubled yarn before. If you're a beginner, maybe you just don't like doubling it. Sometimes people get a little worried about it because it can get a little slippery. And the important thing, and what I'm about to show you is, sorry, I'm trying to see where to switch my video.
There you go.
The loops. So first we're gonna show these 2 balls. We had a fun conversation about whether or not we pull from the inside or outside of a ball. And it turned out Margaret and I had very differing thoughts on it, but that's fun. But for now, we're going to do my way, which is pulling from the outside. If you're winding with a Swift, you have the choice of either inside or outside. But if you're winding by hand, usually you'll only be able to pull from the outside anyway, and it'll be more ball shaped. So each his own. I like to look for the little ends, take a decent amount off. This is red poppy and peachy pink. It's a little blown out right now, but in case you're curious what the colors are. So I'm a continental knitter, so I like to put my yarn to the left where I'm pulling from. I'm going to go ahead and make sure the 2 ends are close to each other. close enough. You're gonna pull as much as you need. For this sake, I'm just showing you how to cast on with two. So I'm just gonna go ahead and make a slip knot. Although recently I've actually tried knitting without a slip knot, which I was told you can do, and now I don't know why I even slip knot. Sorry. I'll go ahead and show the slip knot quickly, but I also might go ahead and show you how to do it without it, just because I've been a big fan of that lately. How do you feel, Margaret? You want to say it without a slip knot?
I'm curious. Yeah.
Go ahead. So all you do is you get into that slingshot position like you normally would, and you just start like right here, and this will be your first stitch.
Oh, how clever.
And it actually needs a much neater edge, I found, after you do a few.
Well, there we
So
go. We'll roll with that then. I like it.
gonna do it. Because I find usually when I've been doing not a slingshot, a slip knot, what happens at the end is that it's always a little bulky on one side
Right.
compared to the other. So I'm just casting on a couple of stitches, not too many, but you can see how I'm holding both almost as if they were one. I'm kind of holding it tight so that it's pretty treated as one thread. And if you look at my needles, each loop is going to consist of 2 strands. So this is going to count as 1. This is going to count as 1. This will count as 1, 1, 1. So then if we
Each
count,
stitch has 2 loops. Yeah.
exactly. Sorry, I'm just trying to get this focus on a little.
Perfect.
There you go. So you can see here, and this no slip knot. It's just simple. But if we were to count it, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So it's 12 stitches held double. So
And that's all you need to do to cast on is just do your normal long tail cast on, holding the 2 strands together, and you're ready to go.
Exactly. I'm just going to pull some yarn. I have a really long tail. That's fine. This is just a sample. But I'm just going to show knitting back and forth a little bit so you can see actually knitting with it. Again, you want to make sure your tension's right. I hold it a little tight, but I'm going to go into both, wrap both around, and make sure that there's 2. Always want to make sure there's 2. Sometimes you'll come around on the opposite end and you'll realize, oh, there's 1. So you want to check for something dangling. There's probably a drop stitch somewhere, but that's easy enough to fix usually in stockinette or garter. So I can always help you guys out one-on-one. We actually just did a one-on-one, I think, last Friday or something like that, last week, where it was just helping people pick up stitches, and that was really fun. So if you ever need direct help for something like that, you know who to call. I recommend a one-on-one project help for that, which I think Kat can send a link to the chat for that.
Yeah, we were able to meet with you over Zoom one-on-one and get you some help with your project. So, and they're completely free.
So that's one single row, and we can just kind of turn. We're going to show the turn and slide or turn or slide a little later, but that's what we're going to do. So yeah. I think we're passing it back to
yeah,
I
can take it from here.
Sorry about that.
No,
I don't have much today. Okay, we're gonna go on to Margaret.
I'm glad you showed that though, Jaja, because that's all it is to cast on and begin this blanket. It's just that lower section of the border is just back and forth garter stitch holding 2 strands together, and it's easy fun knitting in linen quill. It's like you can't get any better than that. So but once
really it feels good against the skin.
Oh, definitely. It's has a great feel against the skin. I'm going to switch back over to my document camera, and now we're going to take a look at the color wash section. So this is after you've knit that base border, when you transition into the colors C through F for all the fun. So I'm going to switch over to my document camera again. There we go. Okay, so we I have 2 things to demonstrate here. So first thing is when it's time to cut colors. So in this swatch, when it's time to go from the blue to the yellow, I wanted to demonstrate that real quick just to show how simple it is. You don't have to tie any knots or anything like that. So imagine we were done with our bottom border here. and it's time to add a new color, all you need to do is just insert your needle like you're normally knitting. And then I have, which colors? True turquoise and eggshell blue here held together. Very beautiful. And I'm just going to make a little loop with my hand, the tail and then the working yarn. And I just like to make an actual loop around my finger and thread that onto the needle. So there's no knots, it's just on the needle, just like you would. And then we're going to knit that stitch as normal. And you just start knitting. And what I like to do is I like to hold those tails of the color that we just added. I like to hold those in the back here. There we go. So that it's just kind of secure and doesn't get away from you. So we just do like that. And that's all you need to do to join a new color. You just start knitting with it, literally. But I'm going to take those stitches out right now. And I just wanted to mention that because that is the technique we will use for a lot of this color wash section, specifically when you switch from A and B to C and D, and then again throughout the rest of the colors. So now the turn and slide, the two color garter stitch pattern, that is the main mechanism that you really use to slowly move from one color to the next. It's a really convenient way to do one row stripes and have like extend out this gradient so that it takes a while and it's not so stark. So it's really nice to make a smooth transition here, which is why we use this pattern for this blanket. So I have a little diagram here. The instructions, the pattern can be like I don't know, sometimes it's nice for me to draw things out or to think through them or see them differently before I really start. So I wanted to do the same. So I have this diagram to just demonstrate how this all comes to be. Actually, let me move my swatch over there. There we go. So here's my needle. There we go. What we have here is a diagram against the swatch. So outside kind of shaded, that's the border. So that would be the blue on my swatch here. And then the first part is knit with yarns C and D. So that would be the lowest part here. Then you go from C and D to D and E, colors D and E, in the two color garter stitch pattern using the turn and slide technique. Then you work in D and E back and forth in garter stitch for a while. You go from D and E to D and F. Then you work with D and F for a hot minute. And then you go D and F to E and F, and then finally round out with E and F. So that's how you go from one color to the next. You move C, D, E, to F. If that helps at all. Sometimes it does to see that. So
yeah,
I'm gonna
the turn and slide. I just wanted to talk about it before you show it. It's really useful for making much more subtle transitions, because basically you're working a new color every other row. Well, after a single row instead of two. And I feel like if you do two, you tend to get more of like a stripe look. But if you just do one, it's a lot more subtle and just seamless. And that's what I love about this.
Yeah, it's a really nice technique, and it's not too difficult. So yeah.
I think once you see it, it's just and it just clicks.
Yeah. So what I have here is, let me see where I am here. Okay. I have just worked the setup row. If we're following along the pattern, setup row is on the right side with old colors, which for this swatch will be my green color. Knit to the end of the row, and then you're going to measure off some yarn and make a little ball. I've made a little butterfly for my swatch, but just wind your yarns into a neat way so that you can not get tangled with them later. And then the reason you need to do this is because, as we saw in my diagram, sometimes the colors that you used you'll need to use again later, and you want to have a fresh skein available for that so that you have two different sources for that color, essentially two different yarn sources. So after you work the setup row, the next step is to slide the work before we go to row one. So what that means is I have my circular needle here. I have the yarn I just knit with cut off and wound into a ball. And then what I'm going to do is just slide this just like that all the way through. Oh, I'm going to get tangled. Here we go. Okay, we're just going to slide it all the way through. So that's making full use of the circular needle here, so that you can just slide it all the way down. And then we're going to start working right here. So I'm going to flip it around so we can start knitting. And our old colors are now on the left, and we can join the new colors. So let me get my needle here. This will be row 1 of the 2-color garter stitch pattern. What we're going to do is insert our needle into both of the loops of the stitch. And just like I showed earlier, to join a new color, just going to wrap it around. And this, what we're going to do is we're going to purl down this row. So just going to wrap that loop around and purl. Now I'm using blues here against green in my color wash section. We have so many beautiful bundles. There's so many fun colors of yarn. I encourage you to choose whatever colors you want for this section. It's totally up to you. Full stripes, smooth gradient, whatever. So I just like how stark these are for good contrast while I'm demonstrating. But we're just going to purl all the way down this row. And then what we're going to do after that is we're going to turn the work. Now, this technique, turn and slide, is called turn and slide, but it might be helpful to think of it as turn or slide, because you're never going to be turning and sliding at the same time. You're just going to be turning or sliding at the end of a row. So that might be a helpful little way to think of it.
Just one thing I want to mention is that's another reason why you have to use circular needles or something that doesn't have a point at one end. Basically, you just can't use straight needles for this technique because there's nowhere to slide it.
Right.
You can use double pointed needles or flexi flips if it's a smaller project. For the blanket, you're going to need circular needles, of course.
Exactly.
But just something that has 2 free ends is the most important thing.
Right, right. I mean, if you're knitting a swatch, I guess you technically could do it on a long double pointed needle, but circular needle is just great, especially to support all the weight of those stitches. So yeah, so we just finished row 1. Now the instructions say we're going to turn work. So to do that, we simply just turn it, just like we usually do. And then we get everybody sorted here. Lots of yarn going on, but we can do it. Okay. Here we go. So got my tails on this side, got the colors I just knit with over here, and we have our old colors ready to go. Row 2, wrong side with little ball old colors, purl to end of row. So what we're going to do is we're going to untie this knot and use these to purl down the end of the row. Now we do have a tutorial for this. There's a link in the chat already, and this tutorial is very specific to the color wash blanket. So if this is not computing for you, we have a tutorial. Maybe that way of demonstrating this information will help. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, so we encourage you to check that out if you need that. But yeah, so row 2 with little ball of old colors, purl to end of row and slide work. So we're going to just purl with our old colors. This is using the tail that we cut earlier. I'm just going to purl all the way down. And then at the end of this, we are sliding the work. So we're kind of alternating colors, purling and knitting, and turning and sliding. So there's a lot going on, but if you just stick with it, you'll get through it. So here we go. All right, we're going to prepare for the wrong side, row 3 with new colors, knit to end of row. All right, very exciting. So end of row 2, we're going to slide the work again. So kind of tighten that up there, help maintain tension. And these are ends you'll be able to weave in later. So just kind of give them a little tug for now. So we just purled down the row, and what we're going to do is we're going to slide this back down. So I'm going to just slide my needle all the way through. It's kind of fun. I mean, I feel like when I started using circular needles all that time ago, I was like, do we ever get to make use of that? Like, that's kind of fun. So here we are making use of that. All right, so row 3, wrong side with new colors, knit to end of row. So here we are. We know what we're using next because it's right there waiting for us. We're using our new colors. It's the only option to really use. So there we go. We're going to knit to the end of the row. And as Jaja pointed out earlier, we're making sure we capture both loops for our stitches here with our yarn held double. Sometimes your tension will change here. I know my tension changes when I purl, and that's okay. The wonders of blocking are waiting for us at the end to help us out. So no worries there. And I'll also show a little technique later when we talk about weaving in ends to help mitigate the tension if needed. Okay, so I'm going to give that a little tug. All right, so that was row 3 with new colors, knit to end of row, and we're going to turn the work. And then again, we are going to use, oh my goodness, here we go. We have all of our tails coming off here. Now we're going to use the little ball of old colors. So for that, that's my greens right here. Get everybody organized. And what we're going to do is I'm going to pull these through here actually, just to help keep everything straight. All right, row 4, right side with little ball of old colors, knit to end of row, and then we'll slide. Here we go. We're going to kind of carry these up the side here, just pulling behind, and we'll knit. And then the pattern instructs to repeat rows 1 through 4 and then repeat rows 1 and 2 again, and then you'll cut the old colors. So that would be the greens here. But that's it. Turning and sliding is really simple. It's just pay attention to the row that you're on and slide or turn as needed. And yeah, that'll get you through. All right, so let's see here. Let's see what we have. There
So
we
I
go.
mentioned you see the questions in the chat, but I think we'll there's some we can talk about at the end, but there's ones I want to talk about now for could you just knit every row instead of purling? If you are okay with a not like subtle change, that is something that you could do if you just want to knit the whole stitch, just do garter stitch the whole time.
You will need to purl though for the first 2 rows of the 2-color garter stitch pattern because of the turn and slide technique, just to maintain the garter stitch, because you'll have knit stitches facing you. So if you do a knit row again, then you'll transition into stockinette stitch accidentally.
Oh yes, so like if you are doing it, yeah, okay.
Yeah. So you could, and then you'd have stockinette stripes, which would be fun. But to maintain the garter stitch pattern, you do have to purl.
And then it's sliding the odd and turning the even, or other way around?
Let's see. That's a good question. Yeah, you're going to turn on the odd, row 1 and row 3, and then you'll slide on row 2 and row 4 and the setup row. Row 0, I guess.
Okay. Yeah,
So
I like to take notes of little things like that, so it's less to memorize.
yeah,
On it, so
it's
it's
a
a
good
good
mnemonic.
quick reference to have.
Yeah, right, exactly. But yeah, that's the turn and slide. So I'd repeat those exact same 4 rows and then repeat rows 1 and 2 again. And then I'd be on my way and I would be fully transitioned to my new colors. And I'd be able to continue, for that next stripe where it's just those colors back and forth, back and forth. So that brings us to, you're going to follow that concept all the way through the blanket. You're going to work all the way through, and then up here what you'll do is you'll cut this last yarn, cut colors E and F that you're holding together, and then you'll switch back to A and B to round out the rest of the blanket. And then what you'll do is you'll bind off knitwise and save that yarn for the end. So I'm going to demonstrate real quick how to bind off knitwise. It's always good to have a little refresher, so I figured I'd show that. Now, I'm going to just go ahead and use this swatch. What you want to do is you want to just knit as usual. We do have a tutorial for this basic bind off. It'll be a link in the chat in case you'd like to reference that. But for doing the basic bind off, you're just going to knit 2 stitches as you normally would. And then you'll insert your needle into that first stitch. And you'll pick it up and over that second stitch. So let me show that again. From here on out, you're just going to knit one stitch because you're just trying to work with 2 total stitches on that right needle. So here's those 2 stitches. And with this, remember, we have 2 loops in each stitch. So lots of yarns going on, but I'm going to insert my needle into that stitch and pick it up and over right there. For a little, there we go. Trying to make sure we can focus here. So yeah, that's how you'll do it all the way down, and it creates this nice little braid looking end. And then once you've worked all the way down, I'm going to go back to my little swatch here, this one. You'll have a nice border, and we say not to cut the yarn here at the end. So this is connected to my skein. And I was going to show that. I think I pulled this a little too tight preemptively. The best way to do that, the best way to really end this without cutting your yarns is just to make this last stitch just outrageously large and passing your whole skein through it. So at the end here, as if this was my last stitch, I would just pull until it becomes just huge. And then
I've never thought of that before. That saves a lot of trouble, actually.
Yeah, and then I just pull right through, and then you just tighten it back up.
Oh.
Just like that.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I see a chat directed to me saying, if this is recorded, yes, this Zoom in It is being recorded. It'll be on our YouTube channel. So that's where you can access it afterwards, of course. So no worries if you wanted to slow things down or see the beginning or whatever, we're here. Or if you have to leave, we understand. So anyway, yeah, you just pull the skein through that last very large stitch and then pull it tight. And then you're ready to continue. So the next step for this blanket, we've finished the center panel. We cast on with 2 colors held together, worked the bottom border. We went through turn and slide the 2-color garter stitch pattern all the way through the end. We joined colors A and B, and then we just bound off. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to rotate our blanket or swatch, and we're going to pick up stitches all the way down this side. And then once we have all those stitches on our needle, then we'll work back and forth in garter stitch and bind off and cut that yarn. So I'm going to demonstrate that. I'm going to demonstrate it on this little tiny swatch here because it's very clear, or at least I think it is. And then I also have another swatch of my own to demonstrate that with, in case you want to see it on the actual blanket. I know sometimes it's like so helpful to see it exactly on the project. So I want to make sure that's incorporated. But we do have a tutorial for how to pick up stitches. You're going to follow the picking up stitches between garter ridges. Remember earlier I was talking about like the little lasagna noodle edges. We're picking up between each garter ridge. So I will show how to do that. So we have our skein and we just bound off. This is the bind off edge. We're going to rotate our blanket to the left. And then with our needles here, what we want to do is we want to make sure we capture every single little edge stitch that we need to pick up. So what we're going to do is make sure we grab the stitch between the first garter ridge and the bind off edge. And then when we get to the end, between this last garter ridge and the cast on edge. So what I like to do, or at least what I found helpful with this, is pulling this edge just for a little bit, just to see what we have going on here. And what starts to emerge is this line all the way along the edge. So if you look at the swatch here, what you might see are all these little tick marks. We're not going to pick up those, but perpendicular to them is this line, this bar of stitches running through. So if I pull it tight, you might be able to see here, here, here. Kind of just helps if I pull it. So we don't want to pick up any of these, but this would be the guy that we're looking for. We don't want to pick up this, but right here, that would be what we're looking for. So that's where we're inserting our needle. Picking up stitches, the only question is, where am I putting my needle? It's after that, you're cruising. So between the bind off edge and the first or the last garter ridge, what we're going to do is we're going to find this loop here, which this tends to be a little looser when you bind off. And that's great. You don't have to guess where you're picking up your stitch. So there we go. We're going to insert our needle just like it's a usual stitch. And I'm just capturing one one leg here. And I'm going to take my working yarn that's attached from the bind off, and we'll wrap it around, and we'll pull it through, and we've just picked up and knit one stitch. So now we're going to find the next one. So kind of pull it, and you can see there's this bar right here. That's what we're going to catch. So insert our needle. And there we go. And you can see that that's between the garter ridge. Here's one garter ridge, here's two. That's between, that's in like the valley of the garter ridges. I'm going to do a couple more of these, and then I'll switch to doing it on the actual blanket swatch, just so you can see what it looks like when there's 4 strands of yarn instead of 1. And the best thing I can recommend for any project that you're picking up stitches, whether it's this blanket or a sweater or anything you're knitting that you have to pick up stitches, is just to be consistent. Pick the same spot each time and it'll look intentional. Even if it's like all the way in here, just pick the same one each time and it'll look, intentional. So as we pull this aside here, we can kind of stretch it again just to see where we're going. It's this very outer bar. Go ahead, Sean.
If you're having trouble getting in there and picking up the stitch, I actually like to temporarily go down a needle size.
Oh, that's a great idea.
It's easier to like slip in there and then make the stitch with your loop as you wrap the yarn around. And then if you're using interchangeable needles, if you have them on hand, you can go back up to the regular size in order to match your gauge.
Yeah. Or you can always just pick up and knit with one needle size and then switch to the other ones immediately. Oh, yeah. I wanted to point this one out. Here's our last stitch. So this is the bind or the cast on edge, and here's our first garter ridge. We want to pick up this horizontal bar right here, which in my swatch is going directly to the slip knot. But it's just the outer line. It's like, so once you see it, you're like, oh my gosh, there it is, there it is. So it's kind of yells at you, it says hi. But there you go. So that's how you pick up all those stitches. And then along the back, this is what that would look like. Just kind of like an intersection. And what was that, Jaja? Go ahead.
Little ridge, little seam, but it's on the wrong side.
It's on the wrong side and it's not too raised. If you look at that. So it's really, and then once you block it, of course, everything is great after blocking. But then you would just turn your work like I've done here, and you would just start knitting. So back and forth with garter stitch. Just like so. So I wanted to demonstrate that. Oh, and that causes your garter ridges to go this way instead of this way, because we're working in that direction now. So to show this exact same technique on the actual blanket, in case it's helpful, I have this little swatch here. I had a lot of fun with this swatch, picking colors.
Oh, was that an original one that doesn't exist already?
Yeah, this is my own personal creation.
That's really good. Cool.
Thank you. It was so fun. But yeah, so I'm going to demonstrate this, and this is the same technique. This picking up stitches technique is the same thing you use for the right-hand side. So we're just going to jump right over to the right-hand side to demonstrate this again, and so that you can see it on the actual blanket. Because I know there's a lot more going on here.
I just want to say, since this is the opposite side, you don't have to worry about not binding off that last one because you're just kind of starting fresh.
Yes, so this is our tail from the cast on edge. So we'll just kind of let that, stay where it is. And we'll pull from our skeins and use a new one. So let me find a free needle here. Okay. So again, the best thing to do is just to pull it apart just for a little bit, just to see what's going on here. You can really see right there. That guy is one we'd pick up right here, right here, right here, and right there. So here's our cast on edge right here. Here's our first garter ridge from this swatch right through here. You can kind of see right there. That's our first garter ridge, second, so on and so forth. So what we're trying to capture is the stitch that's right here. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get this to focus so we can all clearly see. There we go. All right. So we'll insert our needle right here. It looks like I've already grabbed too much. There we go. So
the 2 loops on there.
Yep, we want to get both of the yarns, both of the colors, A and B. on our needle. So we can kind of see where that line continues really easily. And then, just like I showed earlier, we'll wrap this around our finger, wrap it around our needle, however you prefer, and pull through. There's our first stitch. All right, so the next one is right here. And what you will do is you will use colors A and B all the way down. So even when we get to the color wash section, you'll still use A and B to pick up. So I'll go over there. And then the only other thing that I want to point out that might be a little bit difficult to navigate here is when you change colors, the turn and slide, you know, things happen, tension gets a little weird, you know, you have a tail somewhere. So I wanted to go back to my advice of just staying consistent as best you can. Like right here, it's kind of a little wonky, but that's okay. We're just going to pick out this outer edge because that's what we've been doing. And we'll just keep on rolling. Then right here, we're trying to go between the garter ridges. So we can pick up here or here. I think I'm going to pick up right here, this last loop. Then we'll hop over this garter ridge and we'll go right here, pick up some pinks. And we'll just continue on down. So once you have all those stitches threaded on your needle, you'll just work back and forth and garter stitch and continue on from there. The only other thing I wanted to mention is to always make sure you pick up the right hand stitches on the same with the same side of the work facing you as you did on the left hand. So for example, what we wouldn't want to do, or what would cause, you know, the seams to be reversed, is if we picked up stitches with this side facing us. This is the wrong side. You can see the seam here. We don't want to pick up stitches with this side facing us. We want to pick up the stitches with the right side facing us. And you can see that there's no seam like there is right here. Yeah, so that's how you do it. You pick up those stitches, work back and forth until it's time to cast off, and you're rocking and rolling, you're good. Then it's time to my favorite part, weaving ends. Which
your favorite part?
Yeah, I love weaving in ends, but
I'm growing more attached to them. I'm starting to look forward to it.
It can be quite calming for me. So I enjoy it. But I'm going to demonstrate real quick. That's why I left this tail here to weave in ends. I recommend following the duplicate stitch method. It's kind of nice. You're in garter stitch. Everything's already like hidden anyway. Everything's kind of, you know, squiggly. So it's pretty forgiving. But the way I like to do it is I have my tapestry needle here, and I'm just going to thread the needle just like so. And I recommend weaving in your ends before blocking. That way everything gets like kind of locked in when you block. So we do have a tutorial for that. The link is in the chat if you need it. It's always great to reference. But for weaving in ends, what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the smiles and frowns I talked about earlier. So in garter stitch, there's, you know, a frown right here. There's a smile here, frown. They're pretty easy to see once you see it, it clicks. But with two yarns held together, it can be a little tricky. Just, you know, oh, what was that? What was that? So it's just want to make sure you can identify. Like right here, we have this more of a white color and a darker pink held together. So that is all together a frown. This is all together a smile. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our needle here, and we're going to trace this frown right through here. We're going to insert our needle next to it. So we're tracing this frown and going next to it. Just slide that down, pull it through. And then what I want to do is I want to continue to follow this stitch. So I wonder if there's a way to make this a little bit easier to see. Maybe I turn it down by a notch. There we go. What we're going to do is we're going to follow this stitch. So if you look right through here, you can see this stitch goes under and then back up. So we want to duplicate that. We want to do exactly what that stitch is doing. So to do that, we have to go underneath these loops right here. So we're following this pink loop. That's really helpful to see right there. So we're going to go under that and thread it just to the left. There we go. And then we're going to go right back up through the smile because that's exactly what the stitch does that we're following. So we just trace it with our tail and you just repeat that process. You go up and down and side to side, just like that. And
I've
you're
admittedly
weaving it.
never done duplicate stitch and garter stitch before, so this is new for me.
Really?
Cool. Yeah, no, I do something else entirely. This looks so much more seamless and unnoticeable.
It's really nice. So I've done I've done duplicate stitch all through here. And when I flip it over, if I kind of put my fingers there to see, right here, you can kind of tell that's where I did it. They just look like they have a little hood on, you know? But it's really not, it's really quite invisible, which is very nice. And a little pro trick, this is where I purled. I can tell because my garter or my tension changed a little bit right there. Let me
Wow.
So you can see right here, it's a little bit looser between there than it is like right here and right here, for example. So I'm going to do my weaving in ends right here where it kind of fills in that gap a little bit. That's like big brain move.
Very.
Yeah.
Just
You don't have to get that technical.
matching it all in. But
But
I like what you said before too about doing this all before you do blocking, because the blocking really helps to set in and almost
yes.
make fibers stick to themselves more.
Yeah.
And I try not to like cut too much too, because there's always a little bit that sticks out after blocking. And then once I snip, I do the final snips,
Yeah, you can see I
the
cut some.
touch-up snips after blocking.
Yep. I always like to just cut them and then you just kind of pat them. And it just makes them stick right in. I was going to say, Jaja did mention there's a bunch of other ways to weave in your ends. So this is just what works for me. If you like to go and do it differently, I mean, have at it. You can go kind of up like this and kind of go on a diagonal if that's what you prefer. And I like to kind of stretch it out and it's pretty hidden that way, you know, and it's invisible on the front right there. So there's a lot of different ways and you can go back down and do a little zigzag. There's a bunch of different ways. So just do whatever works best for you, whatever, you know, is easiest. I know many people don't like weaving it in, so it's totally okay to do something that makes the process like like bearable, you know. So thankfully though, there's not that many ends to weave in on this blanket, even though there's so many colors. So it's really it's manageable. But yeah, that is weaving in ends. The last step in your blanket, almost made it, Jaja.
Almost there.
Almost to the end. That's an exciting. Let me switch my
I think
camera around
also
here.
some like thinking of ends too, just like one reason that I've become more looking forward to weaving in ends is thinking of it as like a celebration for the end almost.
Yeah.
I have a day dedicated to it now. I call it, Kat knows about this. It's called So Be It Sundays.
Oh, that's so
It's
fun.
Sundays today. So be it is the attitude. And just
Yep.
I'm just sewing in any
It could
ends.
it could even
And
be like SEW, like Soviet.
oh yeah,
I love that.
it's a very punny.
Yes.
So,
That's so
but
fun.
I recommend So Be It Sundays or whatever. So be it Friday. So be
Yeah.
it today. And that's, you're going to finish it. And now talking about blocking, how do you finish it?
Yeah. How do you block a large piece? That's such a good question. Oh, I see Lily's hopping
Oh, there
on
we go.
that. Yes,
We're about to talk about it. Thank you.
thanks, Lily. There's so many good ways to block such a large piece. The most important thing is just to like protect your knitting, just to be delicate with it. You don't want to stretch it, you know, too much when especially when it's wet. So, like I see Lily recommending putting it in a pillowcase. That's a great idea because then it supports the way you can carry the pillowcase like a little sack, you know, instead of like pulling the blanket, like having it go through your fingers. You know, you don't want that at all. So, yeah, that's if you want to wet block it, which can be really nice to get a very fresh, full, you know, wash for your blanket. I know my knitting comes with me everywhere I go, and everywhere I go after that, it's like it needs a wash. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's really nice to give it a full wet block, and we do have a great tutorial for that called How to Hand Wash a Sweater. The same logic applies to a blanket. If you go that route, we recommend not putting your blanket to air dry in the sun. We want it out of the sun just so that it protects the colors. But it's pretty manageable. It's a nice wash and soak, a little bath time for your blanket. But if you don't want to do a full wet block, if you don't want to do, water the whole nine, you can also steam block your blanket. If you have like a handheld steamer or a more advanced steamer, you can steam it. And if you really want to get technical with it, you could put like a light something over it just to protect the fibers. But
I've seen something I've seen. I haven't actually tried this, so I've just seen it. But putting like a damp towel on, this is more for smaller projects, but putting a damp towel, this is for socks I saw, on top of it, and then putting an iron on it if you don't have a steamer. I think more people tend to have irons. So you can do something like that. And then of course there's the one who really into spray brocking recently is like my latest thing. I tried spray brocking for the first time and I just got an empty for hair that I can just moisten actually.
Yeah. Spray bottle.
And just kind of spritzing the whole thing. And I was surprised you don't have to completely saturate it, just enough that it starts to settle in there. And I found the fibers are just a lot more malleable like that. So just to like even it, if you just want to touch up, like you want to do a touch up at the salon instead of like the whole 9 yards, you can just spray block it because that's really easy to just you can find a way to do that at home without buying anything extra.
Yeah, it's really convenient. I see someone asking what soap to use. We have our sweater soap, which is a fantastic soap for hand washing your knits. Maybe one of our moderators can put a link to that. It's comes in 3 scents, I believe, and they are all beautiful. I love them all. They're really great.
Oh, go ahead. No.
I was just gonna say they're beautiful, and I love using them for my knits and any delicate laundry too. It's just a fantastic soap to have in your cabinet. But
yeah, I love the smell of it. And it's also really dilute and is rinse free, and you don't have to completely rinse it out. I've used it multiple times, and even for baby things that I feel like it's just it gets it clean at the same time too. I feel like it does get it clean, and it just relaxes it and softens things up. And I have tried just putting a little bit in a washing machine too. It works as a detergent as well, just a gentle, mild detergent. But it's called our sweater soap.
So. Yeah, it's a great one to use. So we just recommend following whatever blocking technique that suits you, suits your space, suits what if you're trying to clean it or just freshen up. It's up to you. There's a lot of different methods, and we have tutorials if you need them. So yeah.
I just had a thought. Maybe next time I do a spray block, I'll add a little soap to it.
Oh, that would be cool.
To really, if that makes any difference, I'll let you know how that goes.
Yeah, definitely keep us posted because that sounds like it makes a lot of sense.
The grapefruit's my favorite.
Yes, me too. Awesome. Well, that is everything you need to know to knit this blanket. But if you have any questions, we're here to answer them. So I know perhaps our moderators have some for us, but if you have any lingering questions for us, feel free to put them in the chat. We're happy to demonstrate with our swatches here or, answer your question, whatever you need. We're also available via email if you have a question and you're like, oh, I forgot to ask. Feel free to reach out.
Maybe you haven't started yet, and then once you start, it's just
oh, wait a minute. How do I do this?
Thank you. You can email us at customerservice@purlsoho.com. Again, if you need more in-depth help, we have the one-on-one project help, which is completely free. You can do it over Zoom, meet with any one of us. Usually the person most familiar with the pattern will meet up with you. I was looking at the questions. I actually don't see any.
Okay. Wow.
I kind of answered them in real time. There weren't that many. But this also, I feel like, isn't a particularly complicated pattern. I think once you see it, like we're hoping that we answer the questions ahead of time. So yes.
Yeah. Awesome.
If we have any more, yes, please.
Yes. Tina. Does it matter which order you do the colors on each stitch? Do you try to order the colors always the same?
Oh,
I think you're referring to the color wash section. Yes, it doesn't matter really. You can do any order of the colors. I think I know what your question is. You're asking about when you transition here in the 2 color garter stitch sections.
Do you want to bring her up? Is this?
Yeah, if you want to raise your hand, maybe we can bring you up. Ask your, yeah.
I think this.
Yeah, there we go. Oh, hi, Tina.
Tina.
There we go. Let's see. I don't know if we can hear you yet. Maybe we ask you to unmute. That might help. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, should be good now.
So,
Hi there. It's good to see you. Oh,
Oh,
I don't think we can hear you. Try it one more time. There we go. I think we can hear you.
okay.
There we go. Yeah, hi.
So my question is, when you're carrying, like I have a blue and a white,
Mhm.
and when you get them on the needle, sometimes the blue is second, sometimes the blue is
Oh,
first. This
Marling.
time it's second, second, second. Then it's first, first, second. I'm not
Yeah.
consistent. I just let it go
Yeah.
as how it's getting on there. Do you worry about that, or you just let it happen? Because after I do a few stitches, it kind of twists.
Mhm.
And then I
Yep.
do the next stitches and it's like, I cannot get the same color
Yeah.
being the second stitch, consistently.
I feel like it's easier for crochet, but it's
Or
very
does
time
it-
consuming to try to
doesn't
do
matter,
it
or-
consistently on knitting. So I always just let it kind of come as it does. And that's just kind of the natural effect of marling. And it's going to be a little random looking, but I think that's part of the beauty of it. But yeah, I don't tend to control it. Like when I was doing mine, it's kind of in different orders too. It's just kind of how it wound up being. So that's totally normal.
Yep.
Just let it be organic and go with it.
Just
Mhm.
let it be randomly beautiful. Just
Sounds
embrace
good.
it. But I commend you for wanting to
Yeah.
arrange them all. I feel that itch coming. I need to scratch, so I know what you mean, but just
I've tried it.
let it be.
I don't
Sounds
even
good.
know if it's possible. I'm not one to give up, and I gave up.
Yeah.
Okay. But
Thank
Well,
you.
awesome. Yeah, of course. Thank you.
I see another, I know somebody asked about it earlier, but I just wanted to talk about it out loud. Can you talk about the possible need for extra yarn for the one color? I know the print size has 2 colors that get really close, and the throw size has 1 color that gets really close to running out. This is more alluding to what we were talking about for gauge earlier, where if your gauge isn't consistent, usually towards the end of a project, you tend to knit more loosely and you'll use up more yarn as a result. And so you might get run out of yarn towards the end. But since that one's the last color, it really is just a matter of personal taste. Like when we say running out of yarn, you would maybe be an inch off, like at most. And you can always use like 2 colors of something else. So I feel like you'll have plenty of other yarn. Like you don't really have to buy an extra skein. Again, it's personal choice. If you do buy an extra skein, just don't unwind it unless you absolutely have to, and then you can return it if you don't wind up using it. But personally, I feel like the difference would be so little. It's not like it's making a certain pattern where you wouldn't be able to see the finished thing if you just come up a little short, because ultimately you would be using if you were using more yarn, then it's going to be longer anyway. It just, you got to that point faster probably.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's personal choice. We do have a note about which specific colors in our pattern. The small throw uses entire skeins of D and E, and the large throw uses almost the entire skein of color F. So maybe A, B, or C would be good yarns to swatch with.
Okay, so it looks up, I just checked the yardage recommendations because someone's asking about how much extra yarn is there after knitting the blanket if you are engaged. So we just say 439, which is the total amount. So, but we honestly tend to always have a 10% buffer, so that number's can vary.
Yeah.
You are meant to basically keep going until you run out of yarn.
Yeah. It'll vary a little bit with your own specific tension too, and like how long your tails are and things like that. So it will vary a little bit, but you're using the majority of the yarn.
Because I know a lot of people some people don't like too many scraps. So it's mainly just a shorthand way of saying use it all.
Yep, yeah.
It all.
Yeah.
And then where do people block a large blanket? This is
Oh,
a good one.
good
On
question.
towels, on a bed or floor, this seems like the most intimidating step. Yeah, if you are going for the full 9 yards block, I've seen people, you know, if they have a shower, put it over there, but the issue with that is that it tends to
Stretch.
create the stretch over the middle, which is
Yeah.
not great. Um,
I like to lay mine out on my bed, and what I'll do is I'll grab clean garbage bags or plastic bags so that when it doesn't like seep into my bedding and instead evaporates up into the air, that plastic helps the process go faster. You can also put like a fan on it too.
yeah, I use blocking mats, but I use like the big ones, but I also have a dog and she likes to mess with everything. So I put it on top of my kitchen table. And honestly, it's light enough that it's going to be bigger than the kitchen table, but it doesn't fall off.
Yeah.
So it's really dense and it just kind of stays there. And I just eat somewhere else for
Yeah,
like
for a minute. Yeah, you can
but
also
I use the kitchen table.
right. You can measure you can reference the size of the pattern, the finished dimensions in the pattern, and then just measure out somewhere in your space that has that much room. You know,
Yeah.
maybe
But I know,
it's
especially if you have limited space in your home.
yeah.
Like, I would go for wherever the most space is.
Yeah, whatever
If
you
have
can.
pets, high up.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I think that's everything. I mean, I see Gabriella's chat about blocking it outside for fast drying times. I love that. Very resourceful.
Depending on where you live.
Yeah, yeah. But if you have any other questions, feel free to email us. We're always here. But I think that about wraps it up for today. I mean, thank you all for coming.
Yeah.
We really, really appreciate you spending your afternoon with us, talking about knitting. Like, how fun. So
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, right. We didn't get to say like Happy Galentine's Day.
Yeah, it's in a way, it's a Galentine's celebration. That's kind of fun.
Exactly.
These are my Galentine's plans, so that's great. Or Palentine's. I like that phrase too.
Yes, that works
Yeah.
too. Sorry, that's cute. Sorry.
I know.
Okay, let's wrap up.
Yeah.
Do
Do you want to tell us where they can access the recording?
So yes, we're gonna put it up on YouTube when it's ready. So if you aren't already subscribed, I recommend subscribing because then you'll get an alert as soon as it goes out. But you can find, oh, you're both delightful. You're delightful.
Oh, thank you. That's so
Thank
sweet
you.
to say.
Oh wait, I see one more question. If you don't want to do the pickup on border side, can you just knit it all straight across? Like
Pick
if
up
you
on the
don't.
border side. You do have to pick up the stitches in order to knit them. I don't know if that's your question though, but you could just leave it as the center panel if that's what you prefer. That's beautiful too. So it's just what
you just might
prefer.
want to cast on more stitches so that
Yeah.
it's white.
Yep.
But just keep in mind you're going to use it more yarn.
Yeah.
So
It'll
just
change
keep
a little
going.
bit.
Just use all the scraps. Just keep going. That's what I do.
Oh, you could.
Oh,
yes, I see. Gabrielle is asking about Intarsia.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying that. Yes, if you're doing Intarsia, yes, that is another option.
We definitely want to see it though, so please post about it, tag us, and if you want to see what everyone else is knitting, how their blankets look, we put a reference link in the chat. You can go on Instagram, #Purl Soho color wash blanket, and see everyone else's blankets that everyone's knitting. It's a great way to get involved with the community and see what color combinations people chose and if they did borders or not, you know, like it's fun. So hopefully we start seeing some more.
Website as well, I believe, right?
Yeah, I don't think we have a spot to upload pictures of the blanket to our website.
I think that's just general knitting. So the hashtags on Instagram is the best way to see this specific project. And it's hashtag, what are we doing for this one? It's Purl Soho color wash blanket.
Yep. Perfect. Pretty straightforward. But yeah, we already mentioned, feel free to email us, customer service, schedule one-on-one Zoom chat with us. But until we see you next, thank you all so much for knitting and chatting with us. Have a great Valentine's, Palentine's, Galentine's Day, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.